yesterday and mingled with some others in other disciplines or enjoyed Berlin, whatever. Yeah, we're going in the 4th day of Webinale, and this is no special topic day. We had accessibility yesterday and AI on Tuesday, and tomorrow is only a workshop day. And today we have gathered some of the topics we find interesting from the program makers group. If you are a bit more into the marketing side, you're perfectly fine here, of course. I highly recommend you staying till the end if your timetable can do that. The last talk we'll have today is very deep about YouTube and how to get something out of YouTube still, even if there's more content coming in every second as anyone can watch there. But still, you try to, make yourself visible with whatever you do there. So Yannick Marquardt is really a YouTube expert. I did a couple of interviews with him, and I highly recommend that you check your schedule if that's possible. I know it's late. I will have to go to Cologne afterwards also, but it's worth it. So, but we start off the day with, it's quite a similar topic as yesterday. You might remember Tuesday we talked with Gesa Lischka about the idea of neuromarketing. So what can we learn more deeply about our customers, about our clients, about the people we work with? And Philipp and his company, they do that from the beginning on. He published 2 books on the topic. And I also highly recommend these books because though he started to write them when he still was on the scientific side, it's totally not scientific. It's just about understanding people and then really go into trial and error, into experiments, into practical work. And as I mentioned before, there are so many small things how we can push or nudge, as we neuro experts say, people into some kind of behavior. There is a blurring line to manipulation, so we always have to have that in mind. We don't want people to do something they don't want, but we can show them things they might do want in a way where it resonates more with their decision system. And that's what maybe you saw the first slide. It's about 20,000 decisions a day and how we make them. Now, if we go one step further, this discipline is already 20 years around almost. And now that we enter the AI age and we're able to work a bit better with data, we can even go deeper into understanding that without testing with real people. In a couple of times. Testing with real people is always perfect, but you know better than I that tests always fall down in the schedule because they come last and okay, we don't have time, we have to release today. And with AI, we can, or with software, we can simulate a bit of that. We can put that into the data and then the experiments. And that's last sentence. A reason why Philipp and Elaboratum they broaden their scale a bit. They come from the very specialized idea of conversion optimization in e-commerce, for example, and now they address a lot of more marketers because it's going top of the funnel. What do you put in a brand advertising to emotionally reach people? That's as important, or even maybe more important than the last click to the Warenkorb, to the point of sale. So, as we are all awake, you will put your hands together for Philipp Spreer from Elaboratum. Right now.
Thanks, Frank, for the warm welcome, the lovely book promotion. By the way, selling books is a hard business, and I'm pretty happy I do have a real job, and I'm not depending on selling books. Yeah? Just to give you an idea, you sell a book for 60 euros, which is quite expensive. You, as an author, you get 2, 3, maximum 4 euros out of it. So you really need to be John K. Rowling to make a business out of it. So great to have you all here. I mean, it's a tricky slot, 9 a.m. in the morning, but great to have you here, and also hi in the web session. My name is Philipp, as Frank said, and I'm going to tell you a little bit of our experiences and my personal experiences when it comes to creating perfectly customer-centric journeys and especially products. And as Frank said, we come from the topic of how can we decode human decisions and how can we use these insights for building better journeys, better experiences. And one day we came to that insight that, hey, if we just take the product as it is, and we in marketing and sales, for example, we try to put some like behavioral science glitter on it, that may help a little bit, and actually it did, but there's always some kind of glass ceiling, and which you will hit at some point of time. So then we started to work a bit earlier, to start our work a bit earlier when it comes to designing products, because when you design products with a perfectly customer-centric idea in mind, then they sell much easier, as you can imagine. And this is what I brought you today. So first of all, my deepest conviction is, as Frank said, is that you have to master two skills in order to really understand people, and one is psychology and one is data. And this is why this is my kind of personal style of really understanding topics in depth. I wrote books on these. The above one is the one Frank mentioned. It's always available in English if you prefer that. But the more important is that I represent today the behavior design unit of Elaboratum. That is a team of around 20 psychologists and sociologists and people understanders, you could say. And our mission is pretty simple. We try to take scientific insights. Many of these people, they actually do have a scientific background, but not all of them. And we try to take these academic insights and transfer them one by one into practical digital optimization and strategy topics. And that is something where we as a team were kind of surprised that it is that needed, because we thought that, hey, the insights which have been created at the best universities in the world and great experiments with great expense, they are actually there and everybody could access there. They are published in academic journals and so on. But this whole topic has an issue, which is summarized by one of the four thinkers, as it is written here. If behavioral science was a company, it would have really good research and development, but really rubbish shipping. And that's actually the point where we start. So we try to bridge the gap between the academia and the practical business with this team. And we're quite happy to do this for quite a number of customers. We did around 200 projects in that area. And most of our customers, they come from industries having complex products to sell. So you have insurance, you have finance, you have telecommunication, and so on. And that is not an accident, because the less people understand the products you sell and the less they understand the consequences in buying these products, the more they rely on their intuitive, gut feeling based decisions. We will come back to that later on. So, but even if you don't find yourself on that map, no worries, because we're talking about people making decisions under uncertainty. And that is, from my perspective, the most universal knowledge you can have, because it's always people, it's always decision making, and most of the time you have some kind of uncertainty in there. So let's jump into it, and we start, before we come to the product questions, let's start with the topic of how do people actually make decisions. So first of all, one thing is pretty easy, and I think you all can agree that your company's success heavily relies on customer decisions. Yeah, that's like a no-brainer, because if people buy your product or not, that's a decision that heavily impacts your your company's success. If they recommend your product to another person or not, that's a customer decision, heavily impacting your customer success. If they are loyal or churn, that's a decision. So I think we all can agree on that. And if that is the case, if a company's success is so heavily dependent on customers' decision making, we have to truly understand that part. And it's not as easy as it looks, because we hit a ton of decisions every day. It's around 20,000 decisions you're making every day. And thinking back, tomorrow, the day is 9 hours old. I mean, you slept some of it, I assume. But think of yesterday, you can probably not remember more than 10, 20, perhaps 30 decisions. So that already shows us that there is something going on below the conscious barrier. And I was asking myself, I mean, I could present lots of theories and KPIs and that stuff here, or we can play game. And if it's 9 a.m., as it's 9 a.m. in the morning, I prefer the gaming part. But that is the risky part for me as a speaker, because now the whole thing relies on you. The chat, hey guys, they can't participate in that, but it's up to you now. Are you motivated? Yes. Oh, yeah. I like the energy. Okay. So, want to start? Yes. Okay. So, oh, that was too fast. Excuse me. So, the rules. The rules are pretty simple. I give you a couple of questions, super easy ones. You will not be over-challenged. No one will be blamed. And you just shout out the right answer in the room. Okay? Yeah. Okay. Yes. First question. Which compass direction is opposite to north? South, very good. Which company did Steve Jobs found in 1976? Apple, very good. What's the name of the capital of France? Paris, very good. How many animals of each kind did Moses take on his ark? Very, upsala. What happened? What happened? Okay, so let's just recapitulate. I was asking you a pretty simple question. All of you knew the answer, and if I would have put it in a pretty slightly different context, for example, Moses or Noah, who built the ship in the Bible, I think none of you would have answered Moses. Yeah. So you knew actually the right answer, but still you gave the wrong one. And interestingly, your brain wasn't able to correct yourself. So you just put it out, and you just publicly in a room, on a conference, you stated something wrong, despite the fact that you knew the right answer. And that is something which happens actually pretty often. It's an example of a plausibility decision. Plausibility decisions mean that if the decision context is plausible, and that is the case here, because you have animals, you have a guy from the Bible, you have a ship, and all this comes from the Christian biblical context. So the context is plausible. And if that is the case, our brain just surpasses the rational system, and you just push out the answer. And that was part 1 of the quiz. There is a part 2. Are you still motivated? Yes, okay, perfect. The rules are absolutely the same. I give you a question and you just shout out the answer, okay? Let's go. I give you a second. And if you want, just try to feel your body, try to feel what's happening inside. Tick, tack, tick, tack, tick, tack. Maybe you think of your math teacher right back in the days. You're sweating a little bit, your temperature is getting higher, pulse, whoosh. So does anybody know the answer? Yeah, good one. Yeah, but I bet, Frank, it took you some energy, did it?
It did, but actually we had exactly the same duty yesterday.
Yeah. Oh yeah, well, okay, good one, good one. Okay, so yeah, I need to update this obviously, but it still works. That's the funny thing. So what I wanted to show you is like this kind of decision felt completely different than the ones before. And that's, of course, for a reason. And it's a pretty simple one. And if you want to understand the reason behind, let me quickly check where I am in my slides. Yes, it's if you want to understand why these two types of decisions were so different and felt so different, also on a physiological level, you have to start with these two guys. Does anybody know who that is? Seen one of them? This is Daniel Kahneman, Nobel Prize laureate in 2004. He wrote an excellent book called Thinking Fast and Slow, auf Deutsch Schnelles Denken, Langsames Denken. And on the right-hand side, there is his buddy Richard Thaler, Nobel Prize laureate in 2012. So just to give you an impression of how big the topic is we're covering here, on this couch, we have more Nobel Prizes than for the quant system, for X-rays, for the chemical periodic system combined. So it's quite a big point we're covering here. And right in the beginning, these guys and many more, they discovered that our brain loves to take shortcuts. And some of them are pretty known to you. For example, if you're going out tonight, webinar is done, awesome, time to celebrate, and you want to have a bottle of wine, and you're standing there in the supermarket or in your winery, and you're asking yourself which one to take. If a bottle of wine costs 10 euros and another one 20 euros, you assume that the more expensive one is the better one, of course. So there's a shortcut. If something is expensive, we take it as better quality, for example. If you get more of something, it's probably better. If after the word because, we always assume that there's a good reason to come, although it may be nonsense. And if somebody's wearing a white coat, you know that he's absolutely always telling you the truth. So these are some kind of like daily life examples of shortcuts people are making, but of course there's a bigger idea behind, and that is like the whole scientific summary of 20 years research in behavioral science in one picture. So actually people were thinking, and scholars were thinking for decades, that we just are, as human beings, like rational beings. Like if there's two options and one is more advantageous for us, we will always go for that one. But then at some point of time, they understood that these kind of thinkings, they were not able to forecast the future and actual behavior. So they dig deeper into the topic of how do people actually make decisions, and they found out that we have two different decision-making systems. And that is probably not completely new to you. But what is interesting is not only the fact that we have two decision-making systems, but also that the system one, the intuitive decision-making system, stands for around 95% of all decisions. And that's, by the way, the answer why you can make 20,000 decisions a day without noticing it, actually. So that's like the big picture behind. And our brain loves to save energy, and from an evolutionary standpoint, it was always advantageous to come to good decisions in a quite fast and energy-saving manner. So, in system one, the brain developed like patterns and standards and blueprints for making decisions. And that's pretty interesting for us as digital strategists and digital behaviorists, because then we can use with these patterns, we can work with them, and we can try to to build better products and better journeys based on this. So what we did is actually pretty simple. We just collected all the behavioral principles and behavior patterns, which are like 100% waterproof or bulletproof from the academic standpoint, and also applicable in the digital commerce realm. And these are these little beautiful stickers. So let's take one out of them just to give you an idea what's behind that. We take the Hobson's +1 choice effect. That's a pretty simple one with a complicated name, but it means something very simple. Does anybody have kids here in the room? Yes. Do your kids like vegetables and fruit? Yes? Oh, lucky you. No, not that much. Okay. Well, yeah, that's what people are saying, actually. Yeah. You were just on the lucky side. Actually, I have three kids, and my daughter is when I'm telling her that hey, you need some vitamins. You just had cornflakes for whole a week, morning, lunch, and dinner. You just need some vitamins. Go get some fruit. And I give her an apple, for example, and that's most of the time the reaction I get. But if I like kind of reframe the context just slightly, and I ask her, for example, hey, would you prefer, an apple or a banana? Then I shift the decision between accepting my father's choice or not accepting my father's choice into choosing option one, option two, because our brain always compares two options. We never are able to compare more than two options, for example. So in that case, she feels autonomy, she feels that she's able to make her own decisions, and she's absolutely willing to take one of my options, and I'm making my point, whatever she does. So that's a pretty simple one, and the reason behind the name is Hobson's choice is a take it or leave it decision. In digital context, for example, it's like you click on that button or you do not click on that button. That's a Hobson's choice. And if you add one option to that, you have a Hobson's plus one choice. And then that may be something as simple as a second button, for example. So would you like to get out your product right now, or would you like to put it on your shopping list, for example? That would be like a decision architecture using Hobson's plus one choice. So that is one of these more than 120 behavior patterns we collected and wrote that book about. And now the big question is, okay, how can we use this for product design, for building better products, and for helping people to understand what products are about, why they are advantageous for them, and so on. And if you want to think about building better products and creating frameworks for this, you need definitely to start with the status quo. So what we did is we worked for lots of insurance companies, for example, and we went to Allianz, to Ergo, to Zurich, to AXA, and so on. And we asked them, we did interviews, how do you actually build products? And the answer was something they were actually proud of, but we were thinking, yeah, that's exactly the problem. Because most of the time, products are developed by product experts. And that sounds great. I mean, who wouldn't love a product created by an expert? But the point is that these experts, they actually do not care about people. They have no clue in psychology. They have no access to behavioral science. They don't even like marketing and so on. They just put all the energy in products and they create them as experts. But we as users, most of the time, are not experts in these products. So there's a kind of gap. And that has consequences. For example, sales is always, if you have a sales department in your company, that may be familiar to you, sales is always asking for easier products that are easier to sell. If you are spotting for the last real product innovation, you need to travel back in time quite a bit usually. What happens then is that customers, most of the time, they do not perfectly understand the product and all the advantages inside. And lastly, there's always this magic moment when product management, marketing, and sales, when they sit down in a room like this one, and they say, hey, now we have the product ready, let's now think about how to sell it. And then they are creating a story. And marketing says, hey, the story needs to be appealing and emotional. And sales says, yeah, but it needs to be not too expensive. We need strike prices. And marketing says, no, the product is so good, it will sell itself, and so on. And they try to bring up that story. And that's it's obvious not the way you should think about product innovation. So what we did is, first of all, let's get back a little bit. If you have traditional products and you sell them in a traditional way, then you have some market success here. And if you're lucky, then this success will stay stable over time, some kind of. But if you then start to sell your traditional products with, for example, behavioral science injected marketing, then you are able to take these steps here, then because you're then working with experiments and you're starting to better understand your customers and so on. So that will bring you lots of a bit more of success. We calculated this an average around 150 projects, and it's around 52% uplift in sales. But then you see that the steps are getting smaller and smaller, and sometimes the journey is optimized. Then you can get 1% here and 1% there, but the big steps, they are taken. And then it's time for a different approach. And this is what I wanted to tell you today about. It's what would happen if you have these psychology-enabled marketing approach, and also you inject behavioral science and psychology into your product process. So that's where the rocket starts. Boom. So what we would need to do is, out of behavior design, we make behavior product design. We start from the very beginning, where you think about creating novel products. Two things are new about that approach. First is there is a brand new idea of how to develop products. And second, there is a new highly experimental validation methodology. So let's start with the first spot. And I blurred it a bit for you because it's lots of things going on that slide. But the general idea is we try to take the best of design thinking, because it's a process which has been validated so many times. It would be stupid not to take that into account. But we add behavioral science and we add AI. And as we are building the whole process with AI, we're able to take the design thinking double diamond. We're able to not think in a dozen of options, but in 10,000 options. And this helps us, of course, to bring much more confidence, much more validity, and so on in the process. So let's jump right into it. It always starts, you know that from the design thinking with some kind of analysis and understanding phase. So first of all, we have a library where all insights from our projects are stored, and we try to see what can we take as an assumption, as an hypothesis for this product. First of all, empirical insights. Then we make a seminal analysis of all the relevant academic papers which have been published in the specific area. So that's kind of the first starting point, the body of knowledge we're setting up. Then we take this and we add contextual data from our customers. So that may be, for example, think of a telecommunication provider. You're Deutsche Telekom, for example, and you're looking for a more appealing, more attractive portfolio for your mobile contracts, for example. Then you have lots of data. You have sales data, you have CRM data. You did your own customer research. Maybe you even have a neuroscience lab or something. And we take all of this and put it into AI models. And we call these models silicon personas. You know, personas the traditional way. And the idea here of silicon personas is that we bring all the insights into one model, and we try to make all the insights accessible for every question. So the idea is that you can answer your silicon personas via chat about every question you wanna ask. That maybe, for example, is a telecommunication tariff for your friends and family something you would like? Or for example, here are 10 different images we want to sell this tariff with. What's most appealing to you and why, and so on. And then this model gives you answers. It's like ChatGPT, but completely contextual driven and building on the respective data. And we take these silicon personas throughout the whole process. So every time we have a question, we would like to ask people about, and we would usually, like in the old days, ask Kantar or a market research company, could you please ask 1,000 representative people about if they prefer A or B, and it takes 4 weeks and it costs 10,000 euros. If it's cheap, then you can just do the same in a better manner and in a minute or two. So in the product design process, we are understanding barriers and motivational drivers regarding the product with the silicon personas. And then we take a different step. Then we come from the problem space and the design thinking to the solution space. And when it's about solutions, it's about inspiration, and it's about benchmarks, and it's about getting ideas of things that work pretty much in different sphere, for example. So what can we learn for our telecommunication tariff from Netflix, from Uber, from like medical software companies, whatever it is? And actually, that used to be quite a nasty point in the old days before AI, because then you had like lots of Werkstudenten, I don't know the English term, and they needed to sit down and to read the whole internet and to come up with some PowerPoint slides. Now this innovation engine is doing the same thing for us in less than half an hour. So this tool is creating like hundreds or thousands of benchmarks, prioritizing them and telling us what can we make out of these ideas for our product design challenge. And sorry. And then we have lots of ideas, and then the challenge is to bring it down to real product options. So the next step is to create what we call product vignettes. I think in German, Vignetten sounds some kind of better, but it's a bizarre situation. Usually it's the other way around. But the idea is, let's think about like halos, about what could be one dominant feature in a process or in a product, which may people convince to get that product. And then there's a kind of lots of reality checks. Then is legal, is for example checking if that is possible from the legal perspective. Then there are people from strategy who's checking if that is in line with a corporate strategy. People from in an insurance context, for example, you have these actuariats, which are like yeah, you know what that is, actuariat? Yeah, no? Yeah, okay. So these are the people who are just calculating the tariffs and coming up with a price and checking if it's like financially possible to do that. So lots of quality checks, and then we have like a short list of products. And what we then do is pretty nice, because usually at that point of time the real product development would start, and that takes around a year for a new insurance product, and it costs, depending on the complexity of the product, between 1 million and 2 million. So that's something you would probably not invest without being absolutely sure that the whole thing will work out. So what we do, we start some experimental testing and we sell the product before it actually exists. Why is that necessary, and why can we just ask people and do some market research now that we have the ideas? It's pretty simple, because there is, you know, that there is quite a big difference between what people say and what they actually do. And you always have this intention-action gap, which is quite well known in academia and also in the practical world. So you shouldn't just ask people about your product ideas, but you should rather give them the product and see how they are interacting with it and if they are buying it. And how does this look like? I have to speed up a little bit, but we will make it. So what we do, actually, we use the power of paid performance marketing. And we take Google, we take Meta, we take LinkedIn, and so on. And then we start paid ads. So for example, here, this is an Instagram and Facebook case where we wanted to address B2C customers. We just create assets. We ask the algorithm completely freely to find the perfect target group for these products. And that is something which is super powerful because these algorithms, they are solely made to find the best target group. This is a click-per-click based model, a cost-per-click based model. So the company earns money when the algorithm does a good job and finds the right target groups. So that is something what you can take super easy as a kind of primary research to understand who is really interested in your product. And then we take these people on landing pages, and they look like real sales funnels. And well, actually they are. And you can go through all the funnel. You can choose your tariff, you can put in your data, you can say if you want any more options and so on. And then at one point of time, there is a reveal page. And on that review page, we say, sorry, you were a bit too speedy. The product is not yet completely ready. But if you would like to, you can help us to create it by answering just some questions. What would you assume? What's the reaction people give usually? Yeah. Actually, that was exactly what we were expecting, but I'm asking you obviously because the answer is not correct. We have a 65% conversion rate between the upper funnel and the lower funnel with the survey. So that means that 2 out of 3 people, they are not that frustrated or furious about that they cannot buy the product where they invested lots of time. Yeah, I mean, they put in all the data, they made a decision and so on. But they are really willing to answer our questions. And that is, we worked a lot on that text because that really helps to feel people relevant and to give them an idea of being part of something bigger. So we do the survey. And we try to understand why they were showing this behavior. And this is how we can combine actual behavioral data with causal data, which is pretty powerful. And then if we want to, in some projects, we ask them, hey, there's an opportunity, you can get something quite similar if you want to. And then we're creating leads, super highly qualified leads, so that the whole process is refinancing itself. But the last step is just the cherry on top. So that's the idea of how to come to new product ideas using AI and to experimentally evaluate if they are worth it developing. So let's jump to the summary. What we actually did here is we created better products because we have all these insights from behavioral science and psychology involved. We used millions of benchmarks to understand what's really a good idea, which worked somewhere else and can be applied in that context. And we have a structured process which is like bridging all the internal stakeholders as well. And because when it comes to product design, it's not only about products, but it's also about marketing, it's about sales, it's about IT, it's about processes, it's about service and so on. And all these people need to understand where you are in the process and why you're doing the same, this thing. And the second point is that you come to better products with less risk. So usually we bring down the speed or the time it takes to like a well-funded business case to more than 90%. So super fast you come to a business case which is super reliable because it consists on real transactional data. And moreover, you don't have that special meeting where you need to find out about the story and so on. So really, the marketing and sales side is pretty easy to adapt. And that, for example, we just finished one case in context of a dental insurance. products you may probably not be thinking about every day. But we identified a product opportunity which created customer acquisition costs which are 80% lower than the status quo. That means you can, with the same amount of money you need to throw into Meta and Google and so on, you get, instead of 1, you get 5 customers out of it. So that's a radical change for the whole game, of course. And I think that was it. And are we in time, Frank? We are. We are. Wow. Time for questions.
Why are you so silent? In the first place, we have some applause for Philipp. Go ahead. So who has a question, actually? Oh, the light is too high.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
Thank you. My question is whether the conclusions you made on the behavioral decisions customers made, whether they are also applicable for B2B businesses and products.
Yeah, absolutely. This is one of the most prominent questions, I would say. And the basis for this is that also in B2B context, you have people making decisions. So the baseline is perfectly applicable as well. And of course, they have like a structured buying process, and many times you have a buying center which is complex and consisting out of more than one person most of the time. But that may even lead to the fact that these like irrational patterns are even stronger, because then there's this one guy who needs to push the price, for example. There's the second guy who needs to have like 5 different options and so on, and they want to impress each other pretty often. So that is something we also see quite often. And I was telling you the case about the dental insurance. We're now in the follow-up product where it's about betriebliche Krankenversicherung. So that's a product which the HR departments and the C-level gets for their employees, for example. So our target group is like C-level HR decision makers and so on, and it works perfectly the same way. And the KPIs are in the same dimension.
Yeah. The value of your idea is the usage of behavioral data at scale. So B2B is one topic. You don't have that much users to test with or to analyze. But on the other hand, we could have the idea of simulating that with AI. How far can that go? I know you have products in-house that do exactly that.
Yeah. That's a great extension to your question, actually, because in B2B, you actually don't have even the opportunity, if you wanted, to make a research with 1,000 decision makers, for example. And we just had a project with a clinical software company, and their decision makers are clinical managers for big university clinics, and you have like 50 of them in Germany. So your total addressable group is 50 persons in Germany. So obviously you can't do like traditional research. And so what we did is we took transcripts of all the interactions the sales guys had with these persons, and we brought that into these silicon persona models. So we build our customers, and we just sit them beside us, and then we are able to address all these issues and to like bypass this market research issue using like a consolidated, holistic model we can chat with.
One step further, could we even use data from social media, like social media analytics, or how do you call that? Social media monitoring. That's it. Could you use data from there actually to train the models?
Yeah, the models are completely open. So it can be structured data, unstructured data, can be qualitative, can be quantitative. We can use CRM data. We can use movement data from a CDP, for example, how people use your website and so on. And of course, also social listening, social analytics tools can be used. The idea is always to, like, we're building persona personas. So the idea is not to go into a one-to-one relation. So it's not hyper-personalization. We're still thinking in groups. We're still thinking in segments and cohorts. But this is why these more aggregated views on the customers are pretty helpful to build these models. And most of the time, we have between 3 and perhaps 20 different silicon personas in one of these topics.
Bringing that idea one step further into everyday business of every person in business, we could use the personas like an agent. As you know, if you define a persona and there is one person in the company that has to deal with that target group, I could give him an assistant or her an assistant like that persona to chat with, you know, to formulate emails and things like that. Is that a scenario? So we're talking about agents.
Yeah, it's more than a scenario. It's actual practice. I would say. Actually, in that case we're talking about here, the silicon personas are just like your counterpart you're talking to. But what you're referring to is to go one step further and not only get feedback from these people, from people like avatars, but to...
We had actually on Tuesday, we had a guy from an agency here from Berlin, and he said he's about to build his agency new with 10 human creative directors and 50 virtual creative directors, and they have names. So there is the AI called Fritz.
Yeah. Good one. And then the next step is obviously that the silicon personas, they are not only giving feedback on your ideas, but they are optimizing it on their own. And you can, from that, you can think in workflows and complete workflows. And what we do actually is, for example, we start with simpler cases like we create SEO optimized content, answer engine optimization stuff, Gaio, whatever you want to name it, or we do a newsletter, personalized newsletter creation with these workflows, and it starts with silicon personas, but then the silicon personas, they autonomously communicate with the content, with the copywriter, with somebody who's choosing pictures. There's a project lead even who is an avatar who is coordinating the other avatars. So that's already starting, and it shows quite promising results. I wouldn't say we already got there, but the journey is quite promising.
The topics you just mentioned show your DNA as coming from hardcore conversion rate business. So that's topics you can measure. You can actually see the impact. If you see the return rates on emails or on newsletters or whatever there is, you can actually measure, and that's the first step into. You cannot really, in the first place, measure how one single person gets more productive through an assistant.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
Thanks for the presentation, first of all. I have a question about, you mentioned about 65% of the people want to help developing the product further. What do you see? Is it like the journey and the targeting of the people? Or how do you get them to help in that way? So I suppose it's not just the text, a good text, but maybe you have a case or an example that we can understand more about that.
Yeah. Actually, it is almost just the text, surprisingly, because at that point of time, it's a quite strong emotional moment. Yeah, you were like working through the whole process, you invested energy and so on, and then you get this decision point. Not decision. This point of frustration. And then the whole focus, as this is such an emotional trigger, the whole focus is just on that small message you're seeing. And first of all, we tried to apologize in the first project, and we say, hey, we're really sorry, but it's not ready yet. And we took like the blame. And that showed that people are reacting very badly to that, because if somebody apologizes, there was obviously a reason for that person to do that. So something bad happened to me. That's the impression. And then we turned it around and we experimented like a bit more bold and self-confident, and we said, we are creating something really big, and you can be part of it, and what an opportunity. And that started to rephrase the whole topic, and this is why, from my perspective, there are no details in such communication, especially when it comes to emotionally important moments, these moments of truth in a journey, you sometimes call it. And then it's really about the details. So this is why we invested lots of time in how to frame this message. Yeah.
Great. So we have to finish right now for the stream, but the two ladies in the back, the mind berries, will continue exactly where we stopped here. We will talk about personas and AI in user testing. So it's exactly the same idea from the opposite angle, if you wish. So we'll meet in half an hour exactly here, I hope so. And thank you a lot, Philipp.
You're welcome. Thanks.